Secret Invasion was something I've been really looking forward to, because of its spy thriller story, and yet after the first episode, I'm left with what I can really only describe as an empty feeling, still unsure of what to think of the series. There were aspects that I liked, but a lot that I think I'm just unsure of until I see more, which is tough because there are already only 5 episodes left. Part of this feeling stems from the main cast of characters in the series. These are people that we know very little about compared to other heroes in the MCU, and we haven't seen many of them in a while, both in terms of the timeline and when they last appeared in a new project. Ross appeared in Black Panther Wakanda Forever, but other than that, I think the last time we saw Fury and Hill was in Endgame, and then Talos we've barely seen, if at all, other than Captain Marvel. So while it is interesting to get to follow a bunch of characters that we're unfamiliar with, it also makes it harder to be invested in the story since as a fan, I don't have that much emotional connections to them, as say Thor or the Guardians of the Galaxy. And because so much has happened since we've last seen these characters, specifically the Blip, they do feel like very different people. Like Fury is told multiple times in this episode alone, he is absolutely not the same person we all remember from the Avengers movies. So while I think it will be interesting to dive deeper into his character and see him evolve and grow, his role here is very different from the director of S.H.I.E.L.D. organizing everything and outsmarting everyone that we're used to. There's a big gap in his story between the Blip and Saber, and while we get a little of that here, I do hope we get a sufficient amount of explanation throughout the series, because otherwise I think it will be hard to comprehend and appreciate everything about him and his journey. Hill supposedly dying at the end did surprise me a bit. We'll have to wait and see until next week on whether she's actually dead, or if it was a Skrull or somehow she survives or what. But if she truly is dead, then that really shakes up what I was expecting from the series, since she was marketed as being a main lead. And even though she's never had too big of a role in any of these stories, I do feel like she's been shown to be capable and important enough where that wouldn't be how she dies. So crossing my fingers that Hill is back in the next episode. Especially with Ross gone for the entire episode. I mean, he had the opening scene, which turned out to be a Skrull imposter, and then the real version of him never showed up. It's only the first episode, but with Fury coming back to Earth and this makeshift team assembling, I assumed he'd be here from the very beginning. We get a brief scene that introduced Rhodes at the White House, setting him up to appear next episode as an initial force against Fury. And I think a lot of the explanation and fleshing out of Saber is going to come through him. At least I hope so, because otherwise those explanations are going to probably end up being real confusing, since I know virtually nothing about what Saber is other than what's been said on screen. Olivia Colman as Sonya was alright. I'm sure she'll be fleshed out in more scenes in the future. It's obvious that she and Fury have some sort of history together, but at least from what we got here, I wasn't impressed by anything specific regarding her character. Something that I had mentioned in my initial thoughts video after watching the first 5 minutes was that I was confused why the Skrulls were the villains here, when the last time we saw them they were allies of Fury. That was pretty much explained right off the bat, with some of the Skrulls being upset at Fury and Talos for not giving them a home planet yet, partially because Fury disappeared after the Blip. We don't get much of Gravik, the main villain, other than that final scene on Unity Day, which is really just him being a stone-cold killer as he bombs Russia. But we get to spend a lot of time with Emilia Clarke's character, Gaia. It didn't take long for me to put the pieces together and figure out she was playing an older version of Talos' daughter, but it does make sense for the story. I just don't know how interested I'll be in her since I barely know her. Like the scene where she learns about her mother's death, which we really don't get much explanation on other than it being the result of Gravik's work. But it was hard for me to care all that much about the character's off-screen death who I really don't know, and then this character I didn't really know reacting to that news. Hopefully I'll grow more attached to them as the episodes go on, but as of yet it's still difficult for me. Based on what I've seen online and my own reaction to the series, I feel like it'll be very hit or miss with most fans, some loving it, and some just being meh on it. The spy feel of it was really fun to watch. Between the lighting and music and everything, it was pulled off very well. But the story and action are going to be quite different than most of what we're used to with the MCU. There aren't really any superheroes with special powers. Most of the characters are either regular Skrulls or human agents. Rhodes is in the series, but it seems like he'll be used more for his government status than his suit of armor. And as a result of this, the action is going to be a lot more grounded, more chase scenes and fistfights. Most of the action in the episode was decent, but the chase scene at the beginning felt lackluster to me. It just wasn't as exciting or enthralling watching 2 people run through town. A lot of the mixed camera shots were disorienting in the way they bounced back and forth. And to build on that scene with Ross, I am worried that if overused, the Skrull twist will eventually get old. What did you think of the first episode of Secret Invasion? Let me know in the comments below. Remember to like the video and subscribe for more MCU content, and follow me on my various platforms listed in the description. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.